those six people would decide whether you're not guilty or whether you've been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt as is required by law. You also have the right to confront witnesses. That means if you went to trial, the state would have to try and prove you guilty by submitting testimony, witnesses. And you and your attorney would have the right to cross-examine, question, or challenge any witness who would testify against you or in the proceedings. You also have the right of appeal. That means each of you has the right, with the assistance or without of your attorney, to demand that a higher court review the official record of this proceeding and the entire matter to determine whatever legal challenges you wanted to make. That right you have to be careful about because it requires the right paperwork and information. Also, it has requirements of time limitations. That's called essentially the right to appeal. Each of you and the state in your cases, individual cases, y'all have the right to demand that this proceeding be held in open court. However, because of the COVID pandemic, we're not doing that. But in order to proceed to finish this for you, you are required, and I believe you have signed a form that says I consent to the video conference or video conferencing of this proceeding, as opposed to the open public courtroom. Again, the state has that same right too. Both sides have that. Do each of you understand the rights that I have mentioned to you? Ms. Ruff. Isabel Ruff.
Yes, Honor. Yes, Your Honor. I understand.
Manuel Escobedo.
Yes, Your Honor.
Tanya Ramirez.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Deborah McGee.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, did each of you, in fact, the papers that are part of your particular case, respectively, did each of you, those papers that you signed, did each of you review them with your own attorney and get the advice or explanations from your attorney? Manuel Escobedo.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Isabel Ruff.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Tanya Ramirez.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And Deborah McGee.
I did, Your Honor.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Now, among the papers that you signed, one of the most critical and important is the first one. And in all these papers, you're identified in there, each of you individually, respectively. It identifies you by name, case number, and court number. And the first one I want to talk about is the one that's titled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions. Now, I started off talking to you about your rights and protections. This particular document repeats this, but in writing. And according to our understanding, you have reviewed it, understood it, and signed it. The one I'm talking about repeats all these rights, also tells you several other things. One, in particular, it tells you that any deal that you've made with the state is not binding on me as the judge. I have the authority and responsibility to say yes or no to your deal. I've got to do one or the other. I also have the authority to punish you in accordance with your plea on each of your individual cases and charges. That includes giving you a punishment that has to be within the proper range for the offense to which you plead, but it also means that I can give you a punishment greater than what you've agreed to within the proper range. If I reject your deal, I'll say, no, I'm not accepting this. Or if I give you a punishment in any way that's heavier than what you agreed to, the law would allow you to start all over again. And nothing that you've said or signed up till now would be used against you. Is that understood, Ms. McGee?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tanya Ramirez,
Yes, Your Honor.
Manuel Escobedo,
Yes, Your Honor.
and Isabel Ruff.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Now, a second document of importance, all of these are important, obviously. There's one that I'm pointing out to you. It is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. I explained to you earlier that you had the right to demand a review from a higher court. But if you make a deal, a plea bargain, basically you can't make a deal and then say, no, I don't want it after all. You either say yes or no to your plea bargain. If you make a plea bargain, you give up the right of appeal. Is that clear, Ms. Ruff? Come on, folks, it's not that difficult to listen and answer.
Isabel, is that clear? Are you hearing the judge?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Manuel Escobedo,
Yes, Your Honor.
Tanya Ramirez,
Yes, Your Honor.
and Deborah McGee.
Good.
You
Yes,
know,
Your Honor.
if y'all can't listen and answer diligently, I'm more than happy to drop you from this plea and we'll deal with you later. If that's what either one of you wants, I will accommodate you. But either you
apologize.
answer diligently or you don't. Okay? Now, is state on these 4 different pleas, are they all going to get probation?
Judge, we have, let's see, 1 deferred, 2 deferred, 3
Is McGee, is she going to get probation?
Judge, all 4 are going to be deferred adjudication.
All right. Deferred, 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 and deferred. All right. What that means, folks, is that each of you is going to enter a plea. And ordinarily, that means that you would be found guilty. But in this particular case, because of your attorneys have done some very fine work. They have set up an agreement that the state has accepted, wherein you will enter a plea that could be found guilty, but I will not find you guilty. And what that means, the real benefit is if each of you individually completes 100% of the conditions of supervision, then the case will be dismissed and you're not convicted of the charge to which you plead. Now, with that is a danger, there's a risk. If either one of you fails or refuses to live up to 100% of the conditions of supervision, then the state will ask me to give you notice, bring you in for a hearing. And if the evidence in my mind is sufficient, then I will enter a finding of guilt and give you a final conviction that follows you the rest of your life. And you will be looking at 100% of the range of punishment for the charge that you plead to. Most of you will be looking at probably a Class B charge. However, be aware, I will explain to you individually the range of punishment that can affect you in your particular case. So let's start off with Isabel Ruff. Is there a motion from the state?
Yes, Judge, the state moves to waive and abandon the extreme intoxication enhancement and proceed as a DWI first.
No objection from the defense.
Ms. Ruff,
Yes, Your Honor.
do the charge of DWI first. How do you plead, ma'am?
Guilty.
Did anyone threaten you or intimidate you or promise you anything other than the plea bargain deal in exchange for your plea of guilty?
No.
All right. I find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but in accordance with the agreement with the state, I do not find you guilty. Instead, I'm placing you on deferred adjudication. State, recite for me for the record the agreement on punishment.
Yes, Judge, it's 12 months deferred, a $500 fine plus court costs, 48 community service hours, DWI education, victim impact panel, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for half the term.
Which is 6 months. Okay, that's a minimum. All right. Ms. Ruff, do you have children you support?
No.
And how do you earn a living? How do you support yourself?
I work for a land developing company and I also work for a bartender as well.
And what do you earn per month?
It depends. They're both off a commission.
I understand. What do you earn per month? Usually, not roughly. It doesn't have to be exact down to the penny.
4,000.
Okay. All right. And you are a U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Escobedo, you're a U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Ramirez, are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. McGee, are you a U.S. citizen?
Judge, I believe her phone died.
Okay. We'll see how we work that out. I'll leave her to the last. All right. Ms. Ruff and Mr. Dominguez, is the
Yes.
agreement recited by the state accurate?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right. I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. You are granted 12 months deferred adjudication. You'll pay a $650 fine. You'll perform 48 hours of community service restitution. You'll do, in good faith, the DWI education program, the victim impact panel. You'll submit to a TAP evaluation and the recommendations subject to my approval. You'll have ignition interlock continuously on your vehicle. You're not to drive any other vehicle other than your own equipped during those 6 months with ignition interlock. For the entirety, and this applies to each of you that has, well, you're all involved with a drinking issue or charge originally. None of you during the entirety of your probation, and especially during the holidays, you're not going to be drinking any alcohol. Is that clear, Ms. Ruff?
Yes, Your Honor.
All righty. Your supervisory fee will be $43 a month. Do not leave this hearing until you've met with Ms. Luna. You'd also, all of you are going to be required to come in and have your thumbprint placed on the documents, in this case, as required by law. Any question, Ms. Ruff?
No, sir.
Mr. Dominguez?
No, nothing further from the defense for Mr. Ruff.
Okay, and by the way, attorneys, the court admires your advocacy for your clients. The deferred adjudications are important for their well-being. All right. Manuel Escobedo.
Yes, Your Honor.
State what is the motion?
Judge, on this one, it's the same motion. The state moves to waive and abandon the extreme intoxication enhancement and proceed as a DWI first.
No objections, Your Honor.
There being no objection, the motion is granted. Mr. Escobedo, you're no longer charged with extreme intoxication. You're charged with the lower level of DWI. Nonetheless, it's still DWI. To that charge, how do you plead, Mr. Escobedo?
No contest, Your Honor.
A no contest plea is considered a guilty plea in this court. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
And it is sufficient alone for me to convict you. Did anyone threaten you or intimidate you or promise you anything other than the plea bargain in exchange for your plea of no contest in this matter?
No, Your Honor.
Based on your plea and the evidence, I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. State, what is the punishment recommendation and agreement?
Judge, in this case, it is 12 months deferred, a $500 fine plus court costs, 48 community service hours, DWI education, victim impact panel, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for half the term.
which again is 6 months.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge.
All of you have to know and understand that even though you're getting 6 months ignition interlock, or whoever gets whatever time you get, this is the minimum. If you screw up, I can add more time on the ignition interlock, so be aware of that.
Yes,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
I accept your plea of no contest. As I mentioned, I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I don't. Instead, you're granted 12 months deferred adjudication. Tell me something. How do you earn a living? And first of all, more importantly, do you have children you support?
Yes, I'm the custodial parent of 3 daughters. And I work, I'm
What
a
ages? What ages are they?
9-year-old and 4-year-old twins.
Ah. My wife and I were blessed with twins, so it's quite, it's a challenge, but it's also a wonderful experience. God bless you and your daughters.
Thank you.
All right, and what do you earn?
I earn roughly $4,500 a month.
Okay. All right. You're fined $500 plus court costs. You'll perform 48 hours of community service restitution. You'll do the DWI education program, the victim impact panel, a TAP evaluation and recommendation subject to my approval. You'll have 6 months ignition interlock continuously during the duration of your deferred adjudication. Mr. Escobedo, what's the worst thing that could happen in your life?
I could lose my kids, lose my life, lose somebody else's, harm somebody else.
When you drink and drive, you run that risk.
Yes, Your
And,
Honor.
the worst thing that could ever happen to you is that you're drinking and driving and you kill one of your own children.
Definitely.
The second worst would be to drink and drive and kill some innocent person. So keep that in mind the rest of your life. Do you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
Definitely, Your Honor. Yes.
All right. Your supervisory fee will be $34 a month. Stick around to meet with Ms. Luna. Don't forget to come in and put your thumbprint on the documents. Questions, Mr. Escobedo?
No questions, Your Honor.
And Mr. Barrera?
Yes, Judge, just one thing. My client did want to have the option to make a donation in lieu of the community service hours.
All right. My preference, as I said earlier, is to the Gabriel Project. You will do that at the rate of $10 an hour for the hours you choose. If you can choose an alternate, doesn't have to be the Gabriel Project. That's my personal preference. You can donate to the San Antonio Food Bank or anyone else that you get the approval from the probation office. Obviously through me, ultimately through me, but that is approved. Any other thing, Mr. Barrera?
That's it, Judge.
All right, thank you. Tanya Ramirez, what's the motion from the state?
Judge, on this one, we're moving to amend the information to add count 2 obstruction and proceed solely on count 2.
All right. State, or rather defense, first, is there an objection? And secondly, do you waive the 10-day notice?
There is no objection and we waive the 10-day notice, Your Honor.
Very good. That having been said and done, the court approves the motion and congratulations, Mr. Ramirez, you're no longer charged with any kind of DWI charge per se. You're instead now you're charged with obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway. State, what is going to be the plea on that?
Judge, it's a no contest plea.
Okay. Ms. Ramirez, to the charge of obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, how do you plead, ma'am?
No contest, Your Honor.
A no contest plea is considered a guilty plea. I've said that several times. I say it again. Do you understand that?
I do, Your Honor.
And that plea is sufficient for me to convict you of the charge of obstruction. Do you understand that?
I do, Your Honor.
All right. I accept your plea of no contest. I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. Instead, I am placing you on deferred adjudication. State, please recite for me the agreement that you are recommending that defense is in agreement with.
Judge, it's 12 months deferred, a $500 fine plus court costs, 48 community service hours, a Crime Stoppers organization fee of $50, DWI education, victim impact panel, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for half the term.
Mr. Wilson, is this your agreement?
That is the agreement that we came to, Your Honor.
Ms. Ramirez, is this your agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. The court finds there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I don't. Again, you are granted 12 months deferred adjudication instead. Your fine, well, before I go into the fine, how do you earn a living? And more importantly, do you have children you support?
I do. I have a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm a leasing agent. I make $14 an hour. I'm also a master's student, so I am working on my master's. I pay out of pocket for school as well.
Right.
Your Honor, may I add?
Hello, what?
Your Honor, may I add to this testimony?
Yes, sir.
My client started this case out. She was a bartender. She realized that that was not going to be a conducive life for her and her children. She sought out and applied for the master's program she is in now. She also sought out a new job as a leasing agent in an apartment complex. She has made major changes in her life because of this, the accusations, and she has made changes in her life that are significant. She does not at this time receive child support, although I believe the father of the children is ordered to pay child support. And she's supporting these children and trying to make a change of career with this master's program at the same time. She is under a lot of hardship. Tanya, how much do you make a month?
I make about $2,200 a month.
Okay. I would like you to take all these things in consideration, if you would, Your Honor.
All right, sir. Now tell me something. You said, or Mr. Wilson said on your behalf that you're not getting child support?
I'm not, Your Honor.
Briefly tell me why not.
The father refuses to pay. He is on child support. I did take him to court. I've done an enforcement. He just refuses to pay.
Let me just share with you that I practiced privately for 41 years before I became a judge. I did a divorce where the father declared in front of me, he made a big mistake that he would never pay child support. And I promised him that he would if I had to take him to court 6, 7 times. And I did 6 or 7 different times. And each time he went to jail and his family would come back and pay for him and his child support and attorney's fees, which I smiled at. You should do the same thing. I don't care how many times it takes. Every dollar that he does not pay because he's being stubborn is a dollar that he's stealing from his own kids. And if you don't fight it, you're letting him steal from your kids. Now, I realize the difficulty there is in that, but do it. And I will require as a condition, if you have not, that you go to the Attorney General's office and seek their assistance, although they might be slow. If you cannot afford a private attorney, and there are a lot of private attorneys that will do it in exchange for the order from the court that requires them to pay child support and attorney's fees. Now, what does he do for a living? Can you tell me? Hello?
I don't know, Your Honor. I don't know what he does.
Really? Does he see the children at all?
Um, sometimes he will show up.
All right. Sound like you picked a real winner. Your supervisory fee, I'm gonna make the minimum by law, which is $25 a month. That's the minimum. Your fine will be $500. I'm gonna probate half of that. If you contact the Attorney General's office on child support. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
The Crime Stopper fee of $50 I will not impose. You will do 48 hours of community service restitution, the DWI education program, the victim impact panel. You'll do a TAP evaluation and recommendations will be subject to my approval or push. You'll have 6 months of ignition interlock continuously. During the entirety of the 12 months, you will drink no alcohol at all, even especially during these holidays. Is that clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any questions, Mr. Wilson?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Wilson, as an officer of the court, I'm going to ask you, I'm not ordering you, but I'm going to ask you to try and assist your client on the child support issue. I'm not saying that you should represent her. I don't know if you're qualified to handle child support cases, but I know that you've been around long enough to be able to guide her or push her a little bit on getting this fella lined up and getting his butt kicked as he dearly deserves.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I will do that starting today.
I appreciate that, and I thank you sincerely. All right. Deborah McGee, state, what is the motion?
No contest.
Let's see, Judge, on this one, we just moved to waive and abandon count 1 and proceed solely on count 2.
No objections, Your Honor.
Very good. Ms. McGee, that means that you're no longer charged with a DWI charge, and now you're charged with obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, which is critically important. To that charge, Ms. McGee, how do you plead?
No contest.
Sorry?
No contest, Judge.
I'm having trouble understanding you. Did you say no contest?
Yes, no contest.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. You understand that a no contest plea is sufficient for me to convict you?
Yes, Judge.
All right. I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty of the charge, but I do not. I understand there's an agreement for deferred adjudication. State, what is the agreement, the recommendation to the court?
Yes, Judge, the agreement is 14 months deferred, a $500 fine plus court costs, 48 community service hours, a Crime Stoppers fee of $50, DWI education, victim impact panel, the TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for half the term.
All right, before I assess the punishment, Ms. McGee, how do you make a living?
I work as cashier at Circle K.
You're breaking up on me a little bit, ma'am. Mr. Barrera, can you help me?
Yes, Judge. She's a cashier at Circle K.
Okay. And what does that mean by way of income?
I make about
Judge Longoria, can you hear me?
450 and
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, Ms. Rivera? Kayleen?
Judge, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
You were just calling Miss McGee, but I was saying that I didn't see her on here.
Okay, I do see her. She's right there. In fact, on my screen, she's right next to you, but there's,
Okay, well,
she's got an overhead fan going.
I'm sorry I got dropped, but hopefully I'm okay now.
Okay. All right, now, Ms. McGee, you're saying you work for Circle K. What is your income? Ivan, can you help me? Tell me what it is?
No, Judge, that probably had to come from Miss McGee. McGee, can you tell me how much you make per every 2 weeks?
250 every 2 weeks. Oh, wait, hold on. 450, I'm sorry.
$450 every 2 weeks? Yes, Judge, it's $450 every 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's barely $1,000 a month. Okay, do you have children you support?
Yes. Yes, I do, Judge.
Are you hearing a clear
Yes, I
response,
do,
Mr. Bernard?
Judge.
She said yes, Your Honor. She does have children.
How many and what ages?
Oh, God. 1 and she's 11.
She said she has 1 and she's 11.
All right. Are you getting child support assistance?
No, I'm not.
Why not? Did we lose her?
I think we lost her, Judge. I think her internet connection is spotty.
Well, hell. Okay, I'll have to finish with her when she comes back.
That's fine, Judge. I understand.
All righty. Are we ready on Christine Mason, Mr. Sharman?
I don't know what the problem is, but I mean, I've received the documents and I sent them, but for some reason she's not getting them.
See, I don't see it on Adobe, Patty.
Yeah, that's because she hasn't signed them, Judge.
Okay.
Oh,
I sent the appeal agreement, or I'm sorry, the plea agreement. That's the only one I got.
and it's sent to the same email. And I sent both documents that I have. So I don't know.
Judge, I don't know if she needs to start up her tablet or whatever she's on so that she can get those documents. But it's been 2 hours since I sent them to her.
Okay.
What's the email address that you have?
So as we have often said,